Do 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 do. All right. Let's see. Let's get it set up initially. Let's go over everything. Greetings, greetings. I hope everybody is having a good night. Oh, I I left something. Well, I forgot something. I'll be right back, and then we're going to start getting into it. All right, we are back. Oh, sorry about that. I forgot my drink, and right now I've been so sick that I'm gonna have to have a drink. I didn't stream at all last week because I was feeling so ill, but I'm feeling better now, and hopefully y'all are also feeling better as well. We've got a lot to go through, a lot to get into. But I finished a novel as well. I'm a writer. It's what I do when I'm not streaming. If you're ever wondering, like, what does Zoe do? Zoe writes. That's what Zoe does. It is a it is an epic fantasy story. It follows a set of heroes that band together, kind of like found family, as they're fighting to preserve a country, and each one of them has different identity struggles that have brought them together, and they end up kind of embarking on a journey that changes all of them as they're fighting sword and sorcery. Hopefully I'll have that up and available pretty soon. So if you are interested in a queer fantasy story that is very much the same kind of theme of like D&D, Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, like you're looking for queer sword and sorcery, I definitely will have that available. But I was sick like all week last week, and during that time, it seems like news just has absolutely exploded. There has been so much stuff going on with ICE, news with Trump. I want to talk about some stuff that came out about Candace Owens, and I want to touch just kind of like probably going to rant about fascism, just in general, and then also I'm going to eventually get on to just talking in general about fascism, MAGA, this type of stuff. So I had a conversation the other day about ICE, and one of the arguments that I got into was a gentleman saying that ICE essentially has warrants, and everything that they're doing is legal. And that kind of brings me to this first video that we're going to watch. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Legal Eagle, but let's watch some of this video, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of a react to it. I feel like more people
things about criminal
should be talking about this. More people should be made aware of this. And after having this debate with this guy the other night about warrants and him insisting that, well, ICE surely has warrants and this is all constitutional. No, it's not. And let's take a look at what Legal Eagle has to say.
If you know two things about criminal procedure, one is probably you have the right to remain silent, and the other is you need a warrant to enter someone's house and arrest them. But according to a secret leaked ICE legal memorandum, ICE thinks that they can just enter your house and arrest you without any criminal procedure whatsoever. It's 2026, people, and the Constitution is optional, apparently. And that should scare absolutely everyone. There are very few things in the Constitution that are more clear than this. That the government can't break into your home without a warrant signed by a judge. Because under King George, you know, the tyrant that we rebelled against, British officers used what were called general warrants to barge into colonist homes without judicial approval. The Fourth Amendment was written to make sure that no government could ever do that again. So naturally, in the year of our Lord 2026, we decided to do exactly that again. So how did we get here? Well, Whistleblower Aid, a non-profit legal organization, represents two anonymous government officials who have revealed a very secretive and highly uncommon.
So we're already like setting this up, all right? Whenever people say like, oh, well, surely ICE has warrants for all these actions that they're taking for all these people's homes that they're breaking into. No, they don't. And if you are a conservative and you're like, well, if you just follow the law, then you wouldn't have anything to worry about. How would you like it if the police, under this ICE umbrella, and they are separate entities, but I mean, ICE doesn't even have the powers that the police have, but let's just pretend for a second that ICE was operating in a similar fashion as police. Do you think the police should be able to just come into your home whenever they want to and start searching and snooping around to see if there's any illegal paraphernalia, to see what you and your family are up to? Like, you sit down for like, dinner after you've worked all day, you come home to your wife and kids and you're like, you know what, let's sit down and have a family dinner. And then maybe I'm going to go watch some shows before I take a shower and go to bed. And then in the middle of your dinner, all of a sudden, boom, 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 here comes ICE talking about like, let us in here. We're going to walk through here and see if you've got what? If you're hiding migrants. We just want to come in and just see what's going on. You know, big government should be able to just waltz into your house whenever they want to and check on whatever you're doing, despite the Fourth Amendment, despite that, unless they have a warrant, they should not be able to just come into your house regardless of what you're doing. And this pretense that like, well, if you weren't breaking the law, there are so many laws. And a lot of this stuff ends up being so trivial that a lot of people violate laws every day without even knowing it. You might be like remodeling your house and doing some work on your house, and you didn't know that you had to get like some permit from the state to go do some revision in a room. Now, should you check a project before you start a project and all the licensures and everything else? Yeah, you should. Do you deserve to have your door bashed in and armed Gestapo to like rush through your house to check and make sure that, you know, your project is in compliance with local laws? No, that's up to the government to go and get a warrant for that and then to seek civil penalties. But let's see how far is ICE taking this?
Constitutional policy directive issued by ICE in May of 2025. And it looks like there was an actual cover-up to make sure that this memo didn't see the light of day. One of the whistleblowers within ICE had been allowed to view the memo only in the presence of a supervisor and then had to give it back. That person was not allowed to take notes. A totally legal thing when you're trying to train people on what is and is not constitutionally permissible. A second whistleblower was able to access the memo and lawfully disclose it to Congress through counsel. The whistleblower report and a copy of the memo were leaked to the public. So now we have access to a copy of this internal ICE memo that tells officers they can forcibly enter homes and make arrests using only an administrative warrant rather than a warrant actually signed by a judge. That distinction matters because under the Fourth Amendment, those two pieces of paper are not interchangeable. In fact, while they share parts of the same name, they're about as similar as a French horn and a shoehorn. Now, an administrative warrant isn't really a warrant as we normally think about it. It's an internal agency document.
So this is very important here because when I was discussing warrants with this person, they tried to conflate these types of warrants. This is really important of what he's about to go over. The reason why he's saying these are as different as like a shoehorn and a French horn is because just because they have the name warrant in their title, they are not the same thing. I cannot stress this to you enough. Do not let people that are debating you or trying to enable this fascism to do so by pointing out that, well, they do have a warrant, all right? Just because it's called a warrant does not mean it's the same fucking thing.
A shoehorn. Now, an administrative warrant isn't really a warrant as we normally think about it. It's an internal agency document signed by someone who works within the agency instead of a judge from the judiciary branch, which authorizes an arrest for an immigration violation. That administrative warrant allows someone to be arrested, but that's really it. It lets you arrest someone on public property, but it doesn't give them the right to make a forced entry into a private residence. In contrast, judicial warrants must be signed.
All right, so we're already starting to see what the difference here. So an arrest issue for the first type of warrant, the administrative warrant, allows you to arrest an individual often in public. So now let's get to the second type of warrant.
Someone on public property, but it doesn't give them the right to make a forced entry into a private residence. In contrast, judicial warrants must be signed by a judge and specify who or what ICE is seeking. No one is obligated to answer the door for ICE or allow agents into a home unless they have a judicial warrant. But of course, we keep seeing ICE agents forcibly entering homes without any warrant at all and without consent. And we've also seen DHS officers trying to pass off administrative warrants as judicial warrants. In fact, this just happened to Chong Lee Scott Tao, an American citizen from St. Paul. ICE agents burst into his home without showing a judicial warrant while searching for 2 other people, handcuffed him in front of his grandson, and detained him outside in freezing temperatures wearing only underwear and a blanket. They eventually released him hours after they discovered he was not the target. So if you were wondering just where does ICE get off thinking that it has a right to do this, well, it's not just rogue agents. They apparently wrote this down and trained people on it. Yes, they're being told it's legal. Now, the government may not care about your rights or your privacy, but if you do, now is probably a good time to wipe all of your personal and private information off of the internet. Your cell phone number, home address, email address, private social media accounts, and tons of sensitive data are shockingly easy to purchase by anyone online. Conflicts with this little thing.
Yeah, so he's running an ad real quick. All right. So this is already the issue. There are different types of warrants, and ICE, per their own memos, are training people that they can just go and do this with no actual legal warrant, no justification. And they're just pulling people out of their homes with no warrant. They have no legal right to do what they are doing. Don't know how else to say it. What they're doing is illegal. Clearly.
Known as the Fourth Amendment, which is supposed to protect us against unreasonable searches and seizures. But let's dive into this monstrosity. On the top of the page, dated May 12, 2025, from Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons, the money quote says, quote, although the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has not historically relied on administrative warrants alone to arrest aliens subject to final orders of removal in their place of residence, the DHS Office of the General Counsel has recently determined that the U.S. Constitution, the Immigration and Nationality Act, and the immigration regulations do not prohibit relying on administrative warrants for this purpose. What is the authority for this position? Not a court decision, not a statute, certainly not the Constitution. It's a Trump executive order, which, as we've explained many times on this channel, is not law. It then explains, quote, essential to the removal of aliens subject to final orders of removal is the ability to locate and arrest them. So you're telling me that in
once again, falling back on executive orders instead of established law. This is where you end up seeing, Trump trying to circumvent Congress in allocation of funding. We saw this with Doge, where Trump will just appoint someone to a position or just write an executive order, and then they act as if that gives them all the authority of the congressional branch, judicial, whatever they need. They just make it up. Because at the end of the day, they're going to say, well, who's going to enforce this? Who are the people that are enforcing these laws? Well, that's the DOJ. And what does the DOJ do? Well, whatever Trump wants them to do. So do not fall for this. Whenever they are telling you that this is legal or that they have warrants, they do not. Legal Eagle is going to go on and discuss this in full. I'll just direct you to go and watch their video if you want to see the rest of it. Because I just wanted to set this up from having this argument with this guy about if what ICE is doing is legal, if they actually have warrants for what they're doing. And the answer is no. The stuff they're doing is illegal. So this conservative propaganda, when you hear over and over that they're trying to say that, oh, well, you should come on and do whatever we tell you, there's nothing that you can say against this because it's all legal. That's not true. It is not legal. Speaking of ICE and illegal stuff, all right? So this is an article. I'm not going to read the article in full. I'm just going to go over it. This is published by Common Dreams. It's touching on ICE, right? The title of the article is fucking insane. Journalist finds at least 2,300 illegal ICE detentions since July. This is what mass deportations look like. Neither due process nor basic humanity, one lawyer said. Don't look away. And this comes right back to what we're talking about. ICE is engaging in illegal behavior, right? So the article continues. It was written by Jessica Corbett. It says, in yet another edition of the Trump administration's disregard for the U.S. Constitution, there have been at least 2,300 cases in which federal judges have ruled that immigration officials illegally detain people. And Morgan, I remember when warrants were something that was typically required, even in propaganda TV shows. Oh, 100%. No, it still is. So if the police arrest you and charge you with some crime and they don't have a warrant for the information that they gathered there, they have to let you go. Like it's not usable in court, or at least a lawyer can get it thrown out like easily. And like, I know a lot of people like hate lawyers and they're biased against lawyers and everything else. But let's be real here. There's a reason why the law works the way that it does. There's a reason why you have due process. And I remember Trump fantasizing about suspending due process and habeas corpus and that type of thing. We warned y'all to take it serious. We told you that it would not just end if they're talking about openly suspending due process. Then what's to stop the administration from saying, like, you don't have the right to protest. You don't have a right to the First Amendment. They can just censor whatever they want to online because they're buddies with all the people that own these social media companies. So you don't actually have free speech. You don't have the freedom to access the information that you need. There's a reason why I'm showing you like Legal Eagles YouTube channel. Like, they make good content, but at the same time, I have not seen a lot of people in mainstream media talking about this. There's a reason why I'm pulling up a website from Common Dreams, because you don't see this reported in mainstream media. Like, they just don't talk about it. And now we saw with Alex Preddy being shot, that due process apparently no longer applies to the Second Amendment or to executions in the street. ICE can just tackle you, beat you down, physically disarm a weapon off of you, then they can just murder you, saying that, well, you had a firearm on you, even if you did not brandish it, you did not fire it at officers, and you had a license to carry it, right? All these Second Amendment freaks that used to parade around with their military cosplay, the Oath Keepers and everything else, saying like, oh, well, we have a right to have our firearms and military grade equipment when they're protesting Drag Queen Story Hour or any of this stuff. All of a sudden, they're saying like, well, if you legally are carrying this firearm on you and you're not brandishing it at an officer, no, you should still be able to be beaten down, disarmed, and then executed in the street. That's your due process. So this article, if you're curious about it, it goes on to talk about how ICE has literally illegally been arresting and detaining people, putting them in their little ICE camps and everything else. And this is just more of exactly what we've been seeing from ICE. More illegal actions, more denying people due process, more just picking them up and putting them in fucking camps. But I figured a video, and yeah, I know it's Brooklyn Dad, like a #1 reply guy to Trump. But this video is something that I think that y'all should watch, because it kind of goes over what's been going on in kind of a summary in general in Minneapolis. And we're just building up to ICE's violations, okay? So they already don't care about due process. They already don't care about having warrants. Let's just look at a compilation of the things that they've done over the last like couple of weeks. And you're going to see this is the Alex Preddy shooting. This just happened a couple days ago. So here you see, I'm going to walk you through this. Pause, champ, I know. I'm going to walk you through this video because there's a lot of misinformation that's been spread about this. There's a lot of conservatives saying, oh, we don't really know what happened. So here's an ICE officer physically bullying a woman. Okay? So you can see right here, the ICE officer is on the right. There's a woman standing there filming him in a white jacket, and Alex Preddy is standing right there with a brown hoodie on and tan pants. You can see he has a phone in his hand. He's filming. All right? ICE officer pushes her to the ground. He's still standing there. He's only got a phone. There's no weapon in his hand. ICE officer starts spraying them with mace. Grabs Preddy. He's trying to protect the woman right there from being sprayed with mace. ICE officers are going to grab him, pull him off of her from protecting her, throw him to the ground. There's like 8 officers beating on this guy. They're just mobbing him. Then you can clearly see in the video right there, one of the ICE officers pulls a gun off of Preddy. That gun was concealed, carried, and he had a license. He wasn't brandishing it. He had not pulled it out. He's on the ground being beaten. One of the officers saw the firearm in his waistband and pulled it out and walked away from it and started calling out gun. This guy walks away with the gun. The moment he starts walking away, you hear the gunshots from the other officers who shoot him something like 10 times. See, Renee, good. This is where Jonathan Ross, another ICE agent, pulls out a gun and begins firing shots. Now, keep in mind, the first 2 shots, one hit her forearm and the other one hit her breast. It's not until the third shot at a 90-degree angle that he shoots her right in her fucking temple. That is murder. Straight up. His life was not in danger. Yeah, and greetings, Kyle. It's good to see you. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm still sick. I was sick all last week. Like my voice was so bad, like I could not stream. I am mostly recovered, and I figured, like, what the hell? I need to do a stream. And I want to talk about what's been going on despite how my voice is, but it's definitely good to see you. Remember we were talking about not having warrants that we covered? Oh, look what ICE is doing right here with the battering ram. Saw this earlier. Now, they had no warrant. They had no warrant to go in that house. They pulled this guy out in fucking sub-zero temperatures in like boxers and just draped a blanket over his shoulders. They had no knock warrant. They claimed that they were going in there to check for migrants. There were no migrants in it. There was nobody hiding in his house. It's disgusting. Literally. They're arresting a 5-year-old boy. Taking him from his home.
Where's your humanity? That's a kid.
It's literally inhumane. Like, can you imagine being fucking 5 years old? Like, how confused you'd be with everything going on, and now there's just a big police force here to abduct you? And, like, on one side, like, conservatives are going to say, oh, but it's his parents' fault or whatever. And it's like, what are you talking about? That this child is innocent. And no 5-year-old should be abducted from their house and, like, disappeared. This is why you end up, like, I hate how, like, how Tim Walz has not had the backbone to actually address this shit and call it what it is. There's a reason why these kids are afraid to go to school, are afraid to come out of their house. Like, we haven't seen stuff like this. Like, we read in school about Nazis coming for children. And, you know, people trying to hide in their homes from the government. Things like this, I would just say it's un-American. It is inhuman. It's disgusting. They're taking them to ICE camps. They're just disappearing them. Sometimes, like, who knows where they're actually, like, being taken to? Right? The parents don't know where they're at. This is the video we watched before of the guy being arrested at Target. He was working at Target.
Why are you kidnapping?
He's like 16.
Why are you?
This guy right here, they let him out of the vehicle, they tortured him. This guy right here, yeah.
You okay, man?
No, I'm not okay.
They beat the hell out of him and then dumped him in a Walmart parking lot.
Bleeding. They slammed me on the ground.
We covered Aaliyah Rahman right here being pulled out of her car on her way to a doctor's appointment.
Car parking on your car!
You know I'm a Marine Corps veteran.
I don't care what you want.
Yeah, she says she's a Marine Corps veteran, and he says, we don't care who you are. All right? She identifies herself as a Marine Corps veteran, and that should stick to every single person seeing this. He says, "We don't care who you are."
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol.
Fox
Let's be
News
clear.
pretending we have
do
no
not
idea what's going
know
on.
If there was any pushback from this individual who was armed, we do not have evidence that he was waving a gun,
Right.
doing
Why
anything
were they in
to
Target in
threaten
the first
Border
place?
Patrol. He had his phone and he was shooting. He was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident. What is your reaction? And you are an elected official. What can you do about it?
Yeah. When you say like, oh, well, they were recording the incident. Okay. Like at the end of the day, are Fox News reporters, are they allowed to record it? If they go and record something, are they going to get shot and killed for reporting the news? Because we've seen them shooting reporters before. We've seen them going after reporters. So it's so frustrating. So I mentioned Alex Preddy, and we talked about Renee Good. This is a list of people. I just wanted to put their names on the screen. Obviously, Alex Preddy isn't on there, but this is just people that ICE have murdered, like since 2025. Obviously, this is going to be an incomplete list, and this isn't even like near the amount of people that have been abused and harmed by this administration. But just look at those names, all right? These are people that were murdered by our government. And a lot of the people that end up being like harmed, beat down, and brutalized aren't going to be on this list, but we just watched that guy get abducted from Target, brutalized, and dumped in at Walmart just for working and being brown. So it is very frustrating. It's very upsetting to see this stuff going on. But I know that we've been, covered it before, and it makes you feel powerless seeing this. But we are not powerless, and the people of Minnesota, at least, are definitely fighting back against this. I want to show you protests that are going on. And when you see this video initially, you might be thinking like that you're surprised that there's not more people out here protesting. This was just the start of these protests. As more and more people started showing up, and you can listen to what they're saying. As ICE is firing gas at them. Those protests continue to grow and grow and grow. In addition, this is the man that was killed. This is Porter. I just want to put his, his picture and stuff up here because he was killed before Renee Good, and there wasn't a lot of people have talked about it. He basically was. They claim that he was firing a gun into the air. This is around New Year's. A lot of people, if you don't know, culturally will fire a gun for New Year's, and an off-duty ICE agent shot and killed him for firing his gun celebratory in the air. Because of the murder of people like Porter, because of the murder of people like Preddy and Renee, there's been more and more and more growing dissent against ICE and against this fucking government. So I showed you that video before. This is how much it has grown. So we saw the streets before. We saw where it was starting. This is drone footage from that protest as it has grown. They are now in a full general strike in response to this. I want to make it clear that ICE, turn the volume down a little bit because that's very loud. I want to say that ICE, Trump's regime, sorry, I had to cough. They can say whatever they want to, but at the end of the day, this is our fucking country. Not to just go like all American, like patriotism and shit like that. We own these fucking streets. All right, the American people own this. And it has been far too long that for whatever reason, people seem to have forgotten that the American people don't fear our government. Our government should be afraid of the American people. That's not a threat. I'm saying it is a fact. We outnumber them by far. They want to talk about, oh, trans people are such a small portion of the population and they're going to weaponize the government against us. Think about what portion of the population the government is. How many officials, how many military members are there? Walmart fucking has more employees than there are armed service members. If we had a general strike like this, if we organize, you can shut the entire fucking city down. ICE ain't driving anywhere. ICE isn't going to be able to come in here and bully these people. There's a reason why ICE showed up in New York and New Yorkers piled out of their houses and fucking drove them out. Because there are so many people in New York, it wasn't even a question if ICE was going to be able to do their petty enforcement and their Gestapo tactics against New Yorkers. And it's good to see Minnesotans getting out and citizens of Minneapolis fighting back against this. All you have to do is strike. Don't go to work. Say, as long as you have these terrorists that are going into, like, busting down our doors, dragging elderly people out in sub-zero fucking temperatures, shooting women in the street, killing people just for celebrating the new year, engaging in this un-American, unconstitutional, inhuman garbage, this is what you're going to get. This is what your fucking businesses are going to look like. Everything will be shut down. You're not driving anywhere. You're not fucking going to be conducting business. No golf courses. All that shit is shut down. You're not going to Burger King. You're doing nothing. That's what a general strike looks like. And you think this is the only fucking city that we can do this in, you're out of your goddamn mind. And you don't want to know what this gets? You know what kind of results happen because of this? This happens. Look, an open letter from more than 60 CEOs of Minnesota-based companies. Remember when people were saying things like the ruling class, the billionaire class, the Epstein class, they're untouchable. You can't go to court. You know, they have enough money to fight you. They have like more power than God and everything else. Look what brought these fucking 60 CEOs to their goddamn knees and sending a letter asking Trump to pull ICE out of the fucking state. A general strike. Because all these companies are just bleeding fucking money. You've got workers not going to work and saying, we're not going to work in the city. We're not going to work for your businesses as long as these Gestapo are allowed to come and terrorize us in our homes and terrorize our neighbors and go after our kids and their schools and pick people up from courthouses and violate court orders and mask their faces and not tell you who they are. Morgan, it says they need to, for us to just move on. Yeah, to give them a chance what they call it. Yeah, don't move on. Yeah, don't. So the option is get the fuck out of our cities and we'll go back to work, or fuck off. No one's working. Everything is shut down until this shit is over. It's that easy. I don't know why Americans seem like they are finally waking up to this. But if you look at countries like France, they don't fuck around with their liberties and their rights. The government starts fucking around, France fucking riots. The entire country would be out in the streets. And the same thing with this. Like, all these gleeful shitheads, all these conservatives, they seem like they forget that they make up like 20-25% of the country. You can say, well, there's 1 in 4, and it's like, yeah, it sucks that 1 in 4 Americans seem perfectly fine with Nazism. But that means 3 in 4, 75% of us, we're not okay with that. And if 75% of us says we're shutting down the country, we're not going to go to work, we're going to flood the streets and protest, we could shut down the entire goddamn country. And there's not enough control over social media. There's not enough money that these billionaires have that they can pay all of us to just stop. Because the answer is no, not until you fuck off. And just to talk about this for a second. So this is what the full letter below looks like. It says, the business community of Minnesota prides itself in providing leadership and solving problems to ensure a strong and vibrant state. The recent challenges facing our state have created widespread disruption and tragic loss of life. For the past several weeks, representatives of Minnesota's business community have been working every day behind the scenes with federal, state, and local officials to advance real solutions. Oh, so the CEOs were there the whole time. Look, they want you to know they've been working behind the scenes to come up with real solutions. They've included close communication with the governor, White House, vice president, and local mayors. You know, it sucks that all it took was a general strike to get them to actually step the fuck up and do something, to actually provide a statement. And when you see all these CEOs and all the money that is here, it starts becoming obvious that, you know, money fucking talks and bullshit walks, okay? You want them to actually work for us. You want to get CEOs' attention? Take away their money. Take away their labor. Ain't no one making money off of Walmart if no employees show up. Amazon ain't making money if Amazon drivers can't drive anywhere, all right? Bring this shit to a screeching halt and say enough is enough. You stop abusing our workers. You stop terrorizing our families. You stop making us scared in our churches. Otherwise, we're only going to be scared for so long. And then we're going to get to some serious anger like no one's seen in generations in this country. Like since the last, mass labor movements. Now I want to touch on something that, like, obviously I'm worked up about this. I'm obviously angry about this. I'm so tired of seeing these stupid state thugs in our streets. I'm tired of it. But let's get one thing straight. And I hope it doesn't come to this. But if ICE does not pull out, if ICE does not de-escalate what's happening, I'm not saying that I want this. I'm not saying it's a good thing, and I'm not advocating for this. But it seems inevitable that we are going to see people retaliate with equal force to ICE. And I say equal force in that ICE is killing some of our citizens. Some of our citizens will kill ICE. It's going to happen. I don't think that it's a good thing, and I think obviously they should pull out of there and things should de-escalate. But there's only so much liberal, strongly worded letters that people are going to tolerate when there's perceived inaction. It has seemed like the state of Minnesota, the government itself, only talks about doing something about ICE. Only says, oh, well, National Guard, you're put on alert and stand by. Or the police force goes in there. And instead of keeping people safe to exercise their freedom of speech, to exercise their Second Amendment to carry firearms, instead, the police show up and help ICE. If this continues to happen, you will see citizens take justice into their own hands. And we know, very well documented throughout history, what happens when you have mass angry mobs. All right? Look what happened to Mussolini's family. I don't want to see that in this country. I don't think, most of your citizens want to see this, but this is where we're headed. The only good thing about this is that these protests and polling numbers and business communities, oh, look, they've gotten Trump's attention. And Trump seems like he's actually starting to signal that he's de-escalating. As in, he openly stated that he's talking to Tim Walz now. Before, he was framing Tim Walz as a radical lunatic. And this morning, Trump tweets out that he had a long call with Walz that was very productive. And he's going to send his, the head of his little border czar, Hoffman, out there to meet with Walz and community leaders to talk about a resolution. Now, Trump included a bunch of bullshit about the fraud in the state and everything else going on. But the fact that Trump is now saying that he had productive conversations with Walz seems like that is signaling that they might be actually pulling back and de-escalating some of this stuff. Because at the end of the day, this cannot keep heating up without just becoming an open armed conflict. All right, we've seen stuff like this before in this country. We don't want to see it again, right? Bloodshed doesn't actually solve anything. It only rips us apart even more. And institutionally, the more these institutions fail and the more that they cannot check the power of certain agencies, the more you're going to see people, take justice into their own hands. Oh no, Walz, okay. I've been very frustrated with Walz in this entire situation. Walz seems like he has no backbone for any of this. Walz is continuously doing this liberal, we need to de-escalate, the president can do the right thing, the president should, have a conscience about this. Like, he's just appealing to Trump's consciousness, moral character and everything else. It's really pathetic, right? There's a reason why Walz hasn't ordered the National Guard in or whatever else. It's because he's too weak-willed to actually deal with this moment. He's too wrapped up in the idea that the law by itself should be enough to protect us. He's ignoring the fact that every now and then, you're not going to be able to just pacify, ICE or the people protesting by just saying, well, we'll just follow the law, right? The law has been broken at every single step along the way, all right? ICE is acting warrantless. They've been murdering people in the streets. They've been beating and abusing people. They've been telling people that film them that they're going to put them on a list. ICE in internal communications is gleefully carrying out their orders and doing whatever they want to with no accountability. But internally, internal leaks also show that ICE is pretty terrified of the general population right now. They know how unpopular they are. They see how angry people are getting, and they see the sheer number of people that are starting to come out against them. But this is, let's use this kind of dovetail into another conversation. So Trump's numbers are just failing. I covered that on one of my previous streams. His numbers are all underwater significantly. It's something like 60%, 65% think that he's doing a terrible job with immigration, right? That was his strongest, what he had the most approval of before. And Trump has gotten so mad about this that polling came out the other day from, I want to say, the Wall Street Journal. And Trump is now saying that he feels that he should be able to sue all of these media companies and news agencies that publish polls that he doesn't like. So if they publish a poll that shows that, he's not popular, that he should be able to sue them for that. I can't think of anything more ridiculous than this, but this is a chilling effect on the First Amendment. It's all right, Shane. We're glad to have you here. We've just been talking about ICE, reviewing videos of them abusing people, reviewed Legal Eagle's video a little bit, talking about that they're acting without warrants for, the conservatives that want to claim that everything ICE is doing is legal, and just kind of wrapping up the segment on ICE and summarizing what's been going on in Minnesota. I am sick. I know I sound terrible, and I'll have to stop and cough and that sort of thing. But genuinely, I just cannot. It's just so bizarre what has been happening. And I'm glad that Trump seems like he's finally coming to his senses and might be de-escalating with ICE. I wouldn't be surprised if, all these CEOs and all these companies putting pressure on him is helping change his mind. Because at the end of the day, Trump talks money, and that's it. Like, I would never appeal to his moral character as Walz did. But shifting gears for a second, ICE, I would say, is not only fascistic, but let's talk for a second about just fascism in general. And this is kind of a Wikipedia overview on fascism. It's also essentially called, Eternal Fascism, 14 Ways of Looking at Black Shirt. And it's written by Umberto Eco. He's a philosopher novelist. He grew up during Mussolini's Italian fascism. I just want to go over some of these because I hear people talking about fascism, and I get annoyed when they say that Trump is not a fascist. Let's look at the 14 ways real quick. I don't think that we can go over these and we're going to say like there's not, this isn't Trump, right? So we have a cult of tradition. It's characterized by cultural syncretism. It's all truth has been already revealed by tradition. No new learning can occur. Only further interpretation and refinement. So in this, we know that conservatives constantly long for the past. They constantly talk about, the truths that we've all known. They constantly appeal to common sense and calling back to a time that we previously had seen. Rejection of modernism, right? It's essentially rejecting the rationalistic views since the Enlightenment. All right, we see this all the time. It says Eco distinguishes this from a rejection of superficial technological advancement because many fascist regimes cite their industrial potency as proof of the vitality of their system. The cult of action for action's sake. All right, this is connected with anti-intellectualism and irrationalism, often manifests in attacks on modern culture and science. I don't think it's controversial at all to say that that MAGA is constantly cast doubt on science. And this kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the racism that you would see from MAGA as well. I just want to touch on this real quick. So the reason why I would say something like, I'm just going to switch my board, but let's go to the full debate. There we go. And just get the chat on the screen. So the reason why I would say that we end up seeing stuff like this from the right, and I tie transphobia with being anti-science, is because you have to think for a second. In order for them to be anti-trans, they often will say things like trans people are not valid. They'll call into question the medical science behind HRT and transitioning. But a lot of these same people also already called into question evolution, and they don't believe in evolution. So if they already don't believe in evolution, which is one of the modern pillars of medicine, and they also don't believe in HRT and transition care, and they're going to just dismiss anything related to trans people as not legitimate medical science, then we're already dealing with two areas of medicine that they are denying. If they're denying evolution and denying change in allele frequencies, then they're basically going to have to invalidate modern medicine in order to maintain that belief. Now, you might say, but Zoe, they don't really argue against medicine. They argue against trans people. That's not true, because a lot of these fascist types are very much into old medicine and home remedies and that type of thing, going back to this cult of tradition point as well, because they think ancient people had better medicine by just chewing tree bark to treat headaches instead of taking aspirin. They tie anything that comes from pharmaceutical companies to something malevolent, like big pharma and that type of thing, while they praise things like, using aloe plant to rub on burns or something. And that's not to say that none of that stuff works, but they are definitely treating it like it is like it's sacred because it comes from old knowledge, and they'll insist that any refinement of that knowledge we're going to do should come from building on top of like aloe plants, or building on top of things that we get from nature, and not embracing anything from pharmaceutical companies. Even though a lot of pharmaceutical companies get their drugs from plants, or they're just synthesizing to a greater potency chemicals that we find in plants so that they work more effectively. We see this with like diet and stuff. A lot of these conservatives are more into like paleo diet, all meat eating diet. You end up seeing this in support of RFK Jr. And this is where it starts bleeding into an area that's actually really dangerous. And I say it's very dangerous because this type of science denial can impact us on a societal level. This is not just, this is going to harm trans people and thus I'm worried about it. No, I'm talking like people denying vaccines because they've already been conditioned to call into question medical science in general, because of their dislike of trans people. So they're already questioning medical science. It's not hard to sell them on the idea that like, all meat diets. And hey, if you have an all meat diet, then you don't need to get vaccinated. All right. This is why I said that transphobia it's a gateway, just like evolution denial is, into this anti-science, anti-vax position. If you're supporting, like, you're like, I don't understand how people can support RFK Jr. and call into question vaccines to the point where in the US now we're having measles outbreaks again. And it's like, how could this happen? And it's like, because all of these beliefs build on one another, right? You are anti-science when it comes to trans people. You're anti-science when it comes to evolution. It's not surprising to be anti-science when it comes to vaccines. And then you see them saying things like drinking unpasteurized milk is actually better for you because it hasn't gone through any sort of like chemical process. Shane says, you kind of get it though. You don't have access to doctors and medication because of the cost associated. Okay. So I agree with you that like a lot of people are not going to have access to just the general medical system. Like they can't just go to a doctor whenever they want to. But let's be real here. I'm talking about people that are saying things like you shouldn't take Tylenol. All right, Tylenol is an over-the-counter drug that everyone can get access to fairly easily, unless you are like genuinely impoverished. These people are saying you shouldn't take Tylenol, that you shouldn't take aspirin, that you should take, you should like whatever, mix honey and some sugar together and just drink that, or just go eat a steak and eat some drink some raw milk and that'll do better than Tylenol. Like they are totally disconnected from anything like remotely healthy. So that they feel desperate for something that they can actually do for their health while also being salty about the good health care they're being excluded from. No, I mean, I agree. And the anti-trans stuff, yeah, it is just bigotry. But at the end of the day, this comes down to like several problems, right? And we can talk about the compounding issues of like a lack of education, of not really, they're not really able to like find studies, like they can't read if a study is legit or not. They're just fear-mongered too about big pharma. So they start freaking out that anything big pharma produces is terrible. Like at the end of the day, if you see the anti-evolution position, there's a straight through line from anti-evolution to being anti-trans, to being anti-vaccine, to supporting things like drinking unpasteurized milk. What about racism? What if we tied this back to racism, right? I know it's going to sound wild, but think about it for a second. A lot of the race realists that you meet, a lot of them will point to scientific papers that they claim validate them, but these are things that were done at the turn of the 20th century, like in the early 1900s. That's where they're pointing to say, well, somebody did, some observations back in the early 1900s, and this validates our, my bigotry. And then they'll look for things like the bell curve by, I think it's Charles Murray, Conrad Murray, one of these Murrays, wrote a book called The Bell Curve. And these race realists will point to books like that to justify their beliefs. But when I say something like, hey, you should be very worried when someone picks up anti-trans stuff that's anti-science, a lot of times I get dismissed by people that think that I'm just fear-mongering or I'm being sensationalist. No, I'm being really serious. When people say things like they're, against trans people, the reason why I start asking them questions immediately about vaccinations, like what are their opinions on vaccinations? Do they support RFK Jr.? What do they think about like the differences in black people and white people? The reason I ask these questions is because these beliefs compound on each other. They're often coupled together. Like the Venn diagram of people that are anti-trans but are also racist is it's a pretty almost solid circle of information here. And this medical misinformation might be harming them and harming their kids, like the measles outbreaks that we see. But a lot of them have been they're already so afraid of big pharma that when someone like Trump or RFK comes out and says like, oh, you shouldn't get your vaccines at once. You should get them in a multi-stage vaccines and space them out a lot. That ends up creating a situation where some disease can spread. And that's where this ties into, attacks on like anti-intellectualism and irrationalism. We saw this in the debate with Anna Kasparian and Davis, right? Davis kept trying to use, oh, you're in your ivory tower, when Anna would point to statistics or to studies. It says anti-intellectualism that ends up not only harming the people engaging in it, but it harms their family and it harms society in general. And that's kind of like where I wanted to touch on where this anti-intellectualism goes, where if you are anti-trans, you're probably also a racist, or you probably also have some strange beliefs about, vaccinations and that sort of thing. Not that there aren't any valid concerns about any of this. Like the nuance is that there could be like a nugget of accuracy when it comes to medications that these conservatives are pointing to. Like maybe there is something that we should worry about with big pharma, but what we ought to worry about is going to be moneyed interests of billionaires and the safety of these products, more so than just fear mongering that all the modern stuff is terrible and we need to go back to using aloe or whatever else. Yeah, I have like a weird delay or something going on the stream, but it's fine. I think it's still doable. Standing for trans people means standing against sexual violence, believing survivors, protecting body, and refusing to let identity be used as an excuse for abuse. Yeah, 100%. If you normalize the idea that it's fine to abuse anyone in your society, you're going to end up creating a zeitgeist that starts normalizing abuse or starts trivializing it like it's funny when you abuse people. Yeah, with big pharma, it's not the pharma. I agree, Shane. And I agree with Kyle. Yeah, if you start saying just somebody having identity is fine for abuse, then you start normalizing things to the point where people will actually take joy in harming other people. Or it's like, well, it's fine to harm this group of people. It starts becoming a blurry line where, okay, if it's fine to harm trans women, why is it not okay to just harm women in general? Let's keep going with with this fascism though, because I've been wanting to kind of address this and to give you the impetus for this. Maybe this is just going to derail into an entire rant on this. I mean, so we'll just lay it out, right? Disagreement is treason. We see that, right? Trump saying that protesters, fantasizing about shooting protesters, saying that, Renee Good or Alex Preddy, like people like this, that they are treasonous, right? That they are traitors, that they are, trying to commit violence against the state or whatever, just because they don't share this belief that they're protesting against the administration. That alone is enough to call them like a traitor or an enemy from within, right? Fear is difference, right? That's racism, appeal against foreigners and immigrants, appeal to a frustrated middle class, obsession with the plot, right? And Echo cites Pat Robertson's book, The New World Order, as part of an example of a plot obsession. That's also like looking for, it combines xenophobia with fear of disloyalty and sabotaging from marginalized groups living in society. Let's see here. It says that their fascism societies cast their enemies as at the same time too strong and too weak. And we see this with trans people, right? They'll say that we are too strong for women's sports, but we are, and we're taking over all of society, all of academia is compromised. We control the science narrative. It is, ideological capture is what they'll call every single group that supports us. But then, even though we are a tiny fraction of the population, they'll often just say things like they'll meme on like the 42%. They'll call us sissies, or openly mock us because or like laugh at trying to like crush our rights into the ground via legislation and stuff like that. It's like we are we're too weak to be in the military, but we are so strong we're taking over all of society. Let's see, they'll say things like pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. They have contempt for the weak, so like they hate people that have disabilities. They hate the idea of welfare. They hate the idea of having to actually help out anyone. So they want to stoke the grievances of the middle class. But then if the middle class actually needs anything, they'll say that, that it's pathetic to actually need welfare or to need medication, that you should just, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Everyone is educated to become a hero, which leads to an embrace of a cult of death. We see this all the time, especially in the idea that, the right basically tries to martyr every single person on their side that's killed, whether it's Charlie Kirk or Ashley Babbitt. They're all heroes in their mind. Machismo, which is both a disdain for women and an intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits, from chastity to homosexuality. We see this all the time. They absolutely hate people that are gender nonconforming. They absolutely will assault you if you do not fit into their box of heteronormativity, but they despise asexual people as seemingly as much as they despise gay people or women. They have a very selective populism, so they will conceive as a monolith that there's a common will among the people, and that matches their viewpoint. And if anybody disagrees with it, then they're an agent provocateur, or they're a bot, or they're a liar. And last but not least is newspeak. Fascism employs or promotes an impoverished vocabulary in order to limit critical reasoning. Now, this one I want to say, this is what they accuse the left of. They'll say that we equivocate on terms all the time. But what I found in my experiences is that conservatives very often are ignorant on the subjects that they're talking about. And I mean that in a literal sense, as in when I was debating this guy on warrants the other day, he was trying to say that, well, ICE always has warrants and ICE does everything by, by the letter of the law. And then when I started talking with him, it became very clear that he wasn't aware that there are like different types of warrants. Some warrants would allow you to search someone's home. Some don't. But at the same time, whether it's trans issues, race issues, whatever, science in general, very often they don't know what they're talking about. They often don't know They can't even render a definition functionally for evolution. Or if you try and cite experts on a subject, or you use the language like the jargon of within a domain, like on any topic, they'll start saying things like these are made up terms, these are made up words, and they want to reduce everything down to as simplistic language as possible. So like when you talk about LGBT issues, they'll fight against like pronoun usage. They'll fight against, they'll say don't normalize ideas like saying trans woman or trans man. They'll insist on just saying like trans identified person or some shit like that. Like they just continuously want to keep the conversation only within language that they can control. They don't want any specialized terms. They don't want to actually have a good grasp of the subject. They want their mythological representation of science to be science. Are you going to send a meme in Discord? Let's see. And the meme says, the conservative man, moreover, the individualist man is weak. He fears service to his community. He fails to reliably protect the vulnerable, the poor, the elderly. He consigns himself to daydreaming, wishing for a world of theoretical charity to which he may or may not or never participate in. He insists upon an eject button of conditionality over the scantest assigned obligation to those around him. He forces the community into a warped prisoner's dilemma where the total unit of human prosperity is reduced to a near zero-sum game which suffers accordingly, rarely to his own advantage. The individualist man fails to fulfill the template of masculinity vaguely idolized as an ends. He is perhaps somewhat ironically a leech. And I agree with that entirely. It's because they talk about community values. They talk about, family values and this type of thing. But it's very obvious that they are driven by selfishness. And it's very obvious that whenever it comes to actually having to, contribute to society, they don't want to do it, right? And I'm not just talking about like people might think of something like the draft or whatever. I think that's a terrible example as far as like the draft. Like, I don't think we should force people into selective service, but the idea that they are part of a community at all, or that they have obligations to, to act within this community, seems like an absurdity to them. You were in a debate and you mentioned that ableism isn't allowed in the community, and the conservative was just like, what is that? Are we making up words now? Yeah. All words are made up. Yeah, true. Exactly. But that's the thing. Like ableism gives you terminology to address something specific. Like you can actually identify what the issue is, so then you can work to resolve it. But when conservatives are just like, oh, ableism, you're just moralizing. Now you're just moralizing. It's like they boil down everything to be like team sports, and you're either on their team or you're not. And they're just going to like deny that people face issues. Like I've heard conservatives deny that ableism even exists at all. Like that, like it's even a thing. Kyle says to oppose fascism is to choose people over power, dignity over fear, and action over comfort. Yeah, I agree with that. I've said several times, like, I think there should be like people over profits, especially when it comes to like, arguing against corporations and stuff. But like, I think that Trump is undoubtedly a fascist. And you look at these 14 points, and I've seen conservatives trying to do the both sides and say, oh, well, there's to some extent, Biden is a fascist, and they'll play this game. At the end of the day, do not be fooled by this. Trump is a fascist through and through. His administration is operating on it. Now, we'll talk about Anna Kasparian a little bit later, coming out and saying that, oh, I was so wrong about Trump not being a fascist. And she was playing like a useful idiot. I believe that she knew that he was a fascist the entire time. I don't believe for 2 seconds that she couldn't tell that he was a fascist and she was just grifting. But I've argued with people that want to say, well, Trump doesn't meet some specific nuanced definition of fascism. Because remember, words only mean words when it suits them in their game that they're playing. When they're trying to say, well, Trump isn't fascist, they are playing a shell game with you to say, like, unless you can use the specific, jargon that they want you to use, then Trump can't be a fascist, or they're just going to sandbag the entire conversation so that you cannot address any of the problems with what Trump is doing or saying. And at the end of the day, they would argue like, well, Trump isn't interrupting the global hegemony, which he obviously is. That Trump isn't trying to restructure society in like the way that he sees it. He absolutely is. And they would say like he's not ideologically a fascist. And we saw that Project 2025 was a blueprint for his administration. And we know that we're like, 8 months or 9 months out from the midterms. And Trump has already accomplished 51% of what was in Project 2025. So it absolutely was an ideological blueprint that was, Trump's, an insight into Trump's mind and where he's at. And people are saying, well, Project 2025 is fascist, but that's not Trump. That absolutely is Trump. And he's talked about invading other countries, disrupting global trade, fantasizing about seizing Greenland and everything else. It is very obvious to me that Trump 100% was and is a fascist. It's ludicrous to pretend that he's not. And anyone that is going to try to tell you right now that Trump is not a fascist, you should be very, very suspect of those people. They are lying to you and they are trying to deceive you. All right. Trump is a fascist. The ICE is fascist, and Trump's regime is a fascist one, undoubtedly 100%. So let's just go to Anna's apology. And I couldn't find the standalone video for it, but I want to go over the Bituation Room with Francesca, right? Who had been warning, was one of the numerous people at TYT that was speaking out against Anna pretending that Trump isn't a fascist before the last election. Imperialist projects. I can see why someone might argue that Biden is a fascist in limited ways. I think they are wrong. Biden was an imperialist and capitalist, but I can see where they're coming from, as long as they also agree that Trump is worse. All right, so the thing is, I can agree that some of what Biden was doing might check off like some points of like fascist rhetoric, and this is what I was trying to say before, of like you could meet maybe some of this, but I would say that we should treat this just like if you're looking at like a diagnosis for like a mental health condition, right? If they say, well, there's 9 traits of some mental health condition, and if you meet like 4 or 5 of them, then we'd say that you're positive for this. And if you don't, then like you have some traits or tendencies, but you don't actually have this diagnosis. I would say that Biden has some fascistic traits or some tendencies, because America has some fascistic traits to it, as you mentioned, the imperialism and capitalism. But I don't think that I would call him a fascist. Trump, on the other hand, I would absolutely say he meets like every tenet of Umberto Eco's 14 points. And he meets it in multiple ways. And it is a dedicated ideological bent that he has. It's not just that he has a couple of fascistic traits. And that's, to me, is where the difference is. But let's go back to Bituation Room. And let's listen to Anna talking on here. And like, I know Francesca's going to cut in. I'm only here really, I do want to like hear Francesca's response to her, but I also want to hear just Anna talking about it, because this is pretty funny.
I'm sorry. I feel guilt every single day that I didn't see this coming.
Political commentator Anna Kasparian of the progressive network The Young Turks, who famously a few years ago declared herself politically unaligned and spent the run-up to the 2024 election and most of 2025 gracing right-wing shows, not to challenge but to find common ground with them, the ground right over the bodies of trans people.
Is it bad that I don't want to see a dick in the women's locker room?
So when she says stuff like this, I just feel like, how stupid are you? It's like, oh, I don't want to see a dick in the locker room. It's like, first of all, why is anyone like looking at other people's genitalia in the locker room? And I know that you're going to say, oh, well, you know, you might have to change clothes, whatever else. There should be stalls for people to change into. I don't think you should walk into the locker room and have to see any genitalia whatsoever. But that's just a me thing. So whenever she says, oh, is it wrong of me not to want to see a penis? I don't know. Are you wanting to see someone's vagina? Like, are you wanting to go in there and have someone like changing and just bent over and like spread eagle or something? Like, if both of those would be equally kind of offensive to your sensibilities here, where you're like, I don't want to see any genitals of anyone that I've not consented to, right? Then why would it matter if it's a penis or a vagina? It's still someone's genitals. And it's not controversial, I don't think, to say, I don't want to see genitals that I've not consented to. But you are making up a controversy here by saying, well, you know, trans people just have penises hanging out inside of locker rooms. For the most part, no, they don't. Most trans women would be like way too shy to just openly change anyway. Most of us are going to go and try and find a stall to change into. And this would just be a complaint about gym culture in general, not trans people. The fact that she had to make it about trans people just shows you like where she's coming from.
Is that bad?
No.
Anna is now having a bit of a come to
Progressive
Jesus
TYT.
moment and apologizing for not seeing all of the fascism coming and not rightfully calling Trump a fascist.
By the way, guys, I was so wrong. I knew Trump was going to be bad. I didn't like, just because, when I hear the word fascist, I think of.
Okay. Right there, she went to say, I think of World War II and Nazis. That's what she was going to say. That's the talking point she was going to go on. You can hear it when she goes to say it.
Just because, when I hear the word fascist, I think of.
World War II is what she's going to say. And she's literally pretending that unless it's literally Nazi Germany in the 1930s, or unless it's Mussolini, then that's not, then it's not actual fascism. That's what she's going to say. Like, she's so dishonest here.
Fascism is a specific ideology. So when Jake and I got into that debate about whether or not Trump is fascist leading up to the election, notion of a fascist. Because look, if we're just gonna use fascist toward anyone we dislike, all right, then the word doesn't actually mean anything.
Okay, what do you want me to say, Anna? You want me to say wannabe dictator?
Sure, you can say wannabe dictator, but I don't even think he wants to be a dictator.
Of course he does. That's what you do when you lose an election and you go, oh, I got fake electors and I'd like to terminate the Constitution and bring out the tanks and use martial law against American citizens and shoot protesters. I mean, if that's not fascist, then I guess the word just shouldn't exist.
But was he able to do those things?
Okay. So this is like where we ended up getting so frustrated and why I said that she's too intelligent of a person to say stuff like this. Like, this is obvious a grift, right? Like, she's grifting toward the right because she's just like, well, was he able to do any of those things? It's like, why does it matter if he was actually able to pull this off? If he says he wants to shoot protesters, if he says he wants tanks in the street, if he says that he wants to terminate the Constitution, I think it's a fair thing. It's a fair assessment of their character to say, they're acting pretty dictatorial here. I don't think that it's unreasonable to say, yeah, this guy seems like he's a wannabe dictator. But Anna would have had you believe that, he doesn't even want to do this. I'll resize the screen just so y'all can see everything, despite the delay. Morgan says, people fail to grasp the difference between catching a glimpse of someone's genitals in a locker room out of the corner of your eye and being flashed deliberately. To be honest, it really happens. Yeah. So I was in, I used to go to the gym and I'd, gone through the locker room plenty of times. And I want to say, like, of years of going to the gym, like, I saw one person exposed, like, one time. And it was like an old guy that was like sitting on the bench with his legs spread. And I was just like, oh, like, what, why are you doing that? Whenever I walk through, I just don't It's just not something that you commonly see. It's like the bathroom stuff, right? They're like, oh, well, I don't want to go to the bathroom and see a penis. And I'm just like, I'm 40 years old. So I'm probably like approaching midlife at this point. I have never seen someone's exposed genitals in a bathroom that I can remember, in either the men's restroom or women's restroom. That's just not something that happens. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine the type of person that's just standing around with their genitals out in a restroom like that. Like, what would you even be doing? You could say, well, what about guys at a urinal or whatever? I've never like looked at them, and I've never been flashed by someone like that. And every time I go in the women's restroom, people are using stalls with the door closed. So like, you're not seeing anything in there either. It's just such a weird point.
There wasn't evidence to suggest that he has or believes in a fascist ideology. I've seen now multiple videos of innocent people who are they're not obstructing, they're not getting involved.
Well, there's no evidence at all to suggest this, despite him trying to come up with a slate of fake electors to, overthrow our election. And then when the electors wasn't enough, he marched like a few thousand people, like 10,000 people down there to siege the building where they were hosting the elections to overthrow our democracy. And you're like, oh, that's not enough evidence. Like, for someone like this, I feel like that's what I was saying. Like, she's too smart for this, right? She's a grifter, because I just think like otherwise, what warped sense do you have that you're not able to put this together and piece it all into place to say someone trying to overthrow the government and replace the electors with fake electors in order to overthrow democracy? That's not enough to count for you of like, there was no signs that he wanted to be a dictator. What are you what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. Shane says it's pretty rare. Usually just a glimpse. Also, who cares? I'm not saying we should be flashing people, but even kids are not permanently scarred by seeing genitals at a beach or in a locker, or homeless people that are struggling. Notice how she seems to only care about citizens later on. Yeah, 100%. That's the frustrating thing. It's like, not only is she seem like she just doesn't give a fuck about what's happening, because it's like the right people, according to her, like trans people, are being targeted so that, we don't matter. But, oh, God forbid, like a woman driving around ends up being harassed by ICE. And, but I agree. A lot of children also have ended up seeing like their parents over time naked at some point. But it's this pearl clutching shit of like, oh, just imagine, a woman being scarred in the bathroom by seeing a penis. Like, as if, first of all, as if most women haven't already seen penises, right? I feel like there needs to be an entire conversation about how disgusting people will just send dick pics to like even teenage girls and stuff like that. Like, I don't think, if you want to stop like teenagers or young girls and women from being flashed for seeing penises, I don't think trans women are the group that you need to target primarily, if I'm being completely honest here, right? If you've got a phone and you've been a woman online, you probably know what I'm talking about.
They're doing nothing other than standing kind of like away off to the side and filming ICE as they're, raining terror on people. And the ICE agents walk up to them and literally knock them to the ground. American citizens. I'm sorry.
Yeah, who could ever have imagined that a group of armed government forces would like bully people, knock their phones out and stuff like that? If we had the same people that were showing up armed to like intimidate children and people at like drag queen story hour, if we started normalizing the behavior of armed groups of armed men showing up to intimidate people that they didn't like, who ever could have imagined that if we hire some of these same people onto a paramilitary secret police Gestapo, that who could have imagined that they're going to go and actually harm citizens? Whoever could have seen that happen?
I feel guilt every single day that I didn't see this coming. I'm such an idiot.
Ergo, he is a fascist. Sorry, you forgot to finish your thought there, but otherwise, beautifully said, especially that last part.
I'm such an idiot.
Now, credit where credit is due. It takes guts to admit when you are wrong. But as someone who was booted from the TYT network for pointing out colorfully that coddling the right was no way to advance democracy or human rights, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm in front of vulnerable communities.
Uh-huh,
I'm the most endangered, Franny.
By tweeting at Elon Musk? Please, no, help me. I find myself a little peeved and quite unsatisfied. And at the risk of making this egomaniac retreat on her own words, she, after all, has been known to shape her beliefs based on what commentary is made about her, I do think it's important to ask, how did you not see this coming? See, back in the heady days of 2024 and 2025, when TYT wasn't quite sure when the next Peter Thiel-funded Polymarket check was going to cash.
Live from the Polymarket Studios. What is this? Well, we got a new sponsor, Polymarket.
Anna spent a lot of time soft-pedaling Trump, a fake populist who had already very much enjoyed 4 years in office, 2 impeachments, and 1 violent insurrection to overturn the 2020 election, to say nothing of Charlottesville, the Serengeti of white nationalist militias who killed Heather Heyer in cold blood. And also, never forget the defining feature of fascism is corporate power. And in Trump's first term, he gave the rich a massive tax break that added $1.9 trillion to our debt. But other than all of that, how would we know that Trump was going to be fascist in his second term?
Right. And then that's the frustrating part that I have about all of this. Whenever it's like Anna is pretending that she had no idea about any of this, that he'd be fascist at all, despite everything that we had seen up until this point. It was like you could not have telegraphed this more. Overthrowing our election, saying that he wants to terminate the Constitution. I remember him having like Nazi-esque rallies leading up to this point, just making up shit about minority communities. They're eating the dogs, eating the cats. Saw a lady that applied for ICE, didn't sign the affidavit saying she never did any domestic abuse, and they still hired her. Yeah, they don't care. They just want warm bodies to fill in for ICE. And at the end of the day, we end up having a situation where people are like gleeful at the idea of ICE abusing Americans, and they don't realize that they are fascist enablers. And I know they're going to say, oh, but if you just call everything fascist, then fascism doesn't mean anything anymore. No, we are correctly diagnosing the problem. We are pointing out the fascism as it happens, because it seems like so many conservatives, if you're a conservative and you're watching this, there's a good chance that you might be so stupid and brainwashed that you don't recognize fascism when you see it. So we have to point it out to you. Whenever there's people are forming a mob to overturn our election, we're like, hey, that right there, that's the fascism. Whenever women are being shot and murdered in the street for driving around in their SUV, yeah, that's the fascism right there that we told you about. Whenever nurses are being beaten down in the street, having their legal firearm disarmed off of them, and then after they've been subdued, executed in the street, that's the fascism that we've been warning you about. And a lot of you didn't care when it was trans people that were being harmed by this regime. A lot of you didn't care when it was people of color being harmed by this regime. But at the end of the day, there's mass strikes going on now. And when there's statewide strikes shutting down your entire state, so you can't go on your phone and order your little Amazon products, and you can't go drive down to the bar and just, have a few drinks with your buddies and go bowling, when your life is now being disrupted, maybe you get the fucking message that we're not here for this fascist bullshit. That what you are voting in and what you are trying to enable through Trump is not going to take over our country. And that every single one of our neighbors, at the end of the day, when it comes to Canada, when it comes to Greenland and Mexico, we will just shut down your fucking cities and protest this. We will just stop the economy entirely and watch the economy start crashing worse than Trump is already doing when we don't allow you to ship things, when we stop showing up for work to work in your factories for enabling this bullshit. And Anna Kasparian can sit here and play dumb the entire time. I had no idea he was going to do this. when all of us spending time up until the election were ridiculed over and over and over for warning you about the fascism, when you willingly plugged your ears or called us lunatics for saying there's creeping fascism going on, that fascism is at the door in the form of Donald Trump. And you want to say that unless we can give you some nuanced, specific definition of fascism, unless we call it mobocracy, unless we call it a kakistocracy, then it doesn't actually count for fascism. I hope every single one of y'all that said this has to eat those fucking words. And I hope that these protests absolutely disrupt your fucking life and stop you from being able to go and do the things that you want to do because you voted for this. And that until you join us and agree that this is not something that should be allowed to happen within our society, that we should not abuse minority communities, that we should not enable some paramilitary forces to come in and take over our cities, or that we should threaten our allies and tank global markets or go to war with countries just because they offended Trump. Until you agree to that, no, we'll just keep shutting things down. We'll keep protesting. And these strikes are only going to get bigger, especially as it gets closer to this election. The more desperate Trump gets and the more these Gestapo thugs murder people, the more you're going to see these protests grow and grow and grow until the point where the entire country comes to a screeching halt. And it's not going to be anybody's fault except the government's. And you're going to be the one sitting here going, oh, but won't y'all just obey the law and go back to work? No, we have the freedom to protest. And even if they want to say that Trump wrote an executive order saying that you're not allowed to protest anymore, guess what we're going to be saying to all those people? We don't give a fuck. What are you going to do? Arrest the entire country? Put the entire country in prison? How? When you can't even walk down the street because there's so many protesters, when you can't even transfer people to a courthouse, when all business is completely shut the fuck down. What are you going to do then? But will Trump issue an executive order? No, y'all aren't allowed to do this. I'm sorry. Y'all started us down this path when y'all turned around and said that it's fine to overthrow our government, that it's fine for 10,000 armed people to march down there, Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, and all these people. When y'all normalized Charlottesville, y'all started normalizing the idea that, you know what, we're just going to stop working. There's no more zug, no more going to working at Walmart, no more Target, no more Amazon. Sorry, y'all lost access to all of it. No more Burger King, no more going to your favorite restaurants, no more doing nothing until you stop and help us address this problem. And you can either vote these motherfuckers out or everything will get shut down. It's coming. And I keep trying to tell people, there's not going to be an armed revolt against the U.S. Military. That's not going to happen. All right. We don't need to fire bullets. There are way more of us than there are of them. There are so many of us that if we even just go stand around in the street, we can shut down their entire fucking cities. Okay. That's how much more of us there are than them. And is it sad that roughly 1 in 4 Americans is a Nazi? Yeah. But 3 in 4 Americans are not Nazis. And these general strikes should increase to a complete general strike across the entire country. Until they pull back ICE, until they pull back the Gestapo, until they stop threatening our allies and stop trying to destroy like the global order that allowed free trade and relatively people to go about their lives in normalcy. I'm not saying there's not things that we need to work on and the things that we need to fight against or things that we need to change, but absolutely the direction that we're going right now is unacceptable. And I'm so fucking tired of people like Tim Walz coming out and I'm going to write a strongly worded letter and send this off to Trump and ask him to stop. No, you can save your fucking letters, okay? The Minnesotans spoke by filling the streets and shutting the entire fucking city down, all right? We can do that nationwide if we have to until they get the message. We don't need a fucking letter then. We don't need to send mean tweets or angry tweets. Just don't go to work. Organize. And like Shane is saying, check your local GSUS chapter 100%. All right? We are stronger together. We are stronger than the U.S. military together because the U.S. military don't have enough people to go and work all those fucking jobs. The U.S. military couldn't even put enough workers in to work at Walmart, okay? Our labor force is stronger than the strongest military in the world. And all we have to do is decide to do nothing. You can beat these fascist fucks by just not doing your job. Don't fly planes. Don't drive trains. Don't operate boats. Nothing. What do they get out of us? Fucking nothing until they stop this shit. Until they stop murdering us. Until they stop disappearing our citizens. I know I've ranted and gone on a lot about this, but I cannot tell you how important this is, because a lot of people are saying that they feel powerless right now. You are not powerless. You are more powerful than the entire US fucking military, all right? Don't let them convince you that you don't have power. And your power is strike. It's in collective bargaining. It's in joining with the working class. I'd have to pull that clip up once again. Give me 1 second. Because I liked that fucking... I liked that clip too. That was beautiful, wasn't it? Let's see here. Here's the picture of it. So that's the picture of it, okay? That's what shutting down a fucking city looks like. That's the power that we have as the people to just shut this shit down. Greetings, Chase. I hope you are doing well tonight. I'm just ranting about fascism and fighting back against Trump's fucking Gestapo by like the Minneapolis protesters. Mass general strike was successful of just shut the entire fucking city down. Everywhere ICE goes, this needs to follow. And until this administration stops fucking with our lives, stops fucking with the lives of our neighbors and other countries and threatening war everywhere, we need to just shut it down entirely. And you know, you can say, oh, is this like a call to action? I mean, 100%. Yeah. All you have to do to stop fascism is to do nothing. Yeah. You picked my quote. 100%. That's the incredible thing. All right. You have so much power that to beat them, all you have to do is fucking nothing. Don't work. Don't do anything. Don't do anything that they tell you to. And I promise you, when all those companies start bleeding all that money, you saw exactly what happened. 60 companies, 60 CEOs are asking Trump to stop what he's doing right the fuck now. Because that's the power that the people have, right? Those companies are feeling it. And when those companies feel it, Trump's going to feel it. The government's going to feel it. There are so few government members, okay? They are a tiny fraction of our population compared to us, all right? We have way more power than any of them have. And look back at this anytime that you need to remember that. I know we have like no kings, but I'm saying we need the largest mass general strike in U.S. history. I'm talking, I want to dwarf no kings. We should all organize to make this happen up until ICE gets the fuck out of our cities so that we can go back to addressing the other problems that our communities face on a daily basis without some external enemy being sent to our cities where they are killing us and abducting us. We already have enough problems paying our bills. We already have enough problems getting access to healthcare. We don't need these fucking goons sit in here to murder people. Absolutely ridiculous. There's a million things in my life that I would rather do than have to protest fucking ICE. But at the end of the day, if this is what they want and this is where they want it to go, and we have to just shut down everything, then I'm fine. Shut it down. You know, I won't go anywhere. You know, stock up on your supplies, buy enough food and medicine and everything that you need for at least a couple of weeks, and then fucking strike. And Anna Kasparian was absolute fucking dipshit for what she was doing before. Doing apologies for Trump and his fascism. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. we've been going on for a while about fascism and about Trump. I feel like I've been ranting for this like over an hour right now. And I was going to play more about Anna, but I mean, it is what it is. She's apologized for supporting him. I don't accept your apology, Anna. Fuck you for ever like laundering for him. You're going to have to go and actually put in effort, put in work, and apologize to the minority communities that you are hurting. Apologize to the victims of this administration, and you should have to fucking work your way back up via action. Show us through your behavior. Otherwise, I don't give a fuck about your apology. All right. You've done enough damage already with all the stuff that you've done. Your I'm sorry words don't fucking mean anything. And on one hand, I could say, well, it's good for someone to be able to admit when they were wrong. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be convinced that she actually means any of this until there's actual like behavioral change for a sustained period of time. I'm glad you liked the rant. I had a feeling that I was going to end up ranting about fascism. I've been feeling sick, but honestly, I'm more sick and tired of this goddamn administration than anything else. I'm so tired of seeing people get abused every time I look at Twitter and see what ICE is doing. It's absolutely outrageous. And then for people like Anna Kasparian, that is too smart for this, that helped launder this motherfucker's reputation before the last election, to then come on here and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, y'all. I was totally wrong about him. Now that she sees that her brand isn't selling toward conservatives, that they don't really like her from all of her time, being a leftist on the progressive network. They're like, yeah, we can tell what you were doing beforehand, and we don't like you now. Now she's trying to come crawling back. And I'm like, no, Anna, you should shut the fuck up and go actually show that you're changing. Put in the effort. You should stop abusing trans people. You should stop fucking making hay for the Trump administration and their racist ass policies. You should stop being afraid to like call people racist when they are being racist. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But did y'all hear about Candace Owens and fucking saying that Charlie Kirk is a time traveler? Morgan says, find it hilarious that they're trying to make us out to be violent. Meanwhile, the right has driven up the price of ammo, training for terrorizing the American public. Oh, 100%. Ammo got so much more expensive because all these right-wingers have been buying it up, trying to prepare for like some fucking civil war. And I'm telling you, at the end of the day, we don't even have to fight them. There are so many more of us than there are. Just don't work. You don't have to fire a single fucking bullet and you'll get policy changed. But focusing on Candace here. Let's see what she says
Some
here.
of what Kirk said. Take a look.
It is an absolute fact that Charlie Kirk thought that he was a time traveler. He told me he was a time traveler repeatedly. How was he so certain?
So she's saying that he thought he was a time traveler, and he told her he was a time traveler multiple times, like colloquially, like, hey, I'm kind of, in the wrong point in time. I'm so traditional that I should be from the 1800s.
That he was going to die young. How is that possible? How was he even able to describe it as this tragic event? How did he know? How was he certain, by the way, as he said in those messages, that from the moment he signed onto the dotted line to begin Turning Point USA, he knew he was going to die. He knew his death was going to be related to Turning Point USA.
All right, so I'm going to just purple screen once again so that we can talk about this, because I've got to tell you right now, this is where the anti-intellectualism on the right ends up leading to. Just wild conspiracy theory. So first of all, I know, right? This timeline is fucked. So Candace, just starting, let's just take it from the top. So Candace is clearly going off into conspiracy land. And she's kind of doing like an Alex Jones turn at this time in her career. And just to address what she was saying, she's like, well, he said he was a time traveler. Let's just put that aside. Maybe he did say that. Even if he did, would that make it true? No. She's like, how would he have known how he was going to die? I can already tell you that for a long while, And this is like from the time that I was a teenager, because I used to argue and debate LGBT issues in Alabama growing up. And sometimes people get very hostile toward me. I had gotten into fist fights talking about like civil rights and that sort of thing. I have been hate crimed in real life, like, actual violence done to me. I have long thought that at some point there was the real possibility that I would get murdered for being like a trans rights activist, or that somebody might kill us, in retaliation because they're anti-trans or anti-LGBT or whatever else. This is just an intuition that I've had for a long time because I've seen what happened to other people that speak out on behalf of trans issues or LGBT issues. There was a trans woman where I used to live that had her house burned down when she was doxxed, and the community out there found out where she lived. That it's a very real possibility. And at the end of the day, I can either pack up my stuff, turn off this camera, and just go away and live my life in fear, hoping that I can assimilate well enough that no one ever sees me or figures out where I'm at. And this is what a lot of trans people deal with, right? There's plenty of stories of people murdering us, like after going out on a date with us. Or there's the football player hooked up with a trans woman, then came back to her house the next day with his friends and beat her to death. We see trans teens being stabbed to death by their classmates. We saw Next Benedict, that was Brianna Gay, was stabbed to death. Next Benedict was beaten severely in a bathroom in Oklahoma and then died the next day due to sustained injuries. This has been something that's happened for centuries. We've seen people that are of minority groups. We saw the KKK terrorizing people of color. So I don't think it is outrageous to speculate that I might be murdered someday for speaking out about trans issues. That's just true. I would have to deal with that. And I'm going to keep the camera on. I'm going to keep talking because at the end of the day, if all trans people disappear and hide, then these fascists get what they want. No one hears our stories. No one knows we exist. And then they can pretend that we've been like eradicated. I forget whatever country it was. Maybe somebody in the audience will know. Remember whenever they said something like, there are no gay people in this country. And a lot of people laughed when they said that. Because they figured that, let's just look it up. Who said that? It was the Chilean leader. And this was in 2017. So like some of y'all might not remember this. The Chechen. So the Chechen leader said, there are no gay people in their country. And on one hand, it's funny because it's absurd. And it seems like that anyone would say this. It was Chechen. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised with Russia at this point as well. But on one hand, it's funny because it's so absurd to think something like that. On the other side, it's frightening because obviously the implication is people are terrified to be identified as LGBT, right? And we know like 76 countries around this planet, it's illegal to be LGBT, right? I know well enough, like conservatives will tweet at us that, oh, it's ironic that you support Palestine because like they throw you off the rooftop or something in that country. But at the end of the day, yeah, they might throw me off a rooftop over there. I might be honor killed or something in some other country, but I can just as easily be killed in America, especially for having the views that I have or just existing the way that I do. This is something that a lot of minority communities deal with. And some of us are killed in hate crimes every single year. It happens to Black people. Women are killed as well because of some people that hate women. So for Charlie Kirk to say that he might be killed, first of all, it's like, oh, he was signing this line with Turning Point. So there's a lot of vested money involved in this. He's also very provocative. And he was also saying a lot of things that would anger a hell of a lot of people. There have been plenty of celebrities that have been killed. Remember Milk, right? Milk was killed for being gay and for being an open politician. We end up seeing celebrities that end up being shot and killed. Sometimes they're minor celebrities. Like they might be like a B-list singer gets shot and killed just because they have some notoriety. So for Charlie to say something like that, even if it was true, it's not that remarkable at the end of the day. You're somebody who has fame. You're somebody who's well known, especially going around the college campuses and everything else. And we know that there are some people that are motivated for murder simply because that they want to be famous, right? A lot of mass shooters end up doing this. Quite frankly, I'm surprised we don't see more people that are trying to gain this kind of notoriety instead of doing mass shootings, targeting celebrities, especially, talk show hosts and stuff like that. That seems like it would get you a lot more notoriety than shooting up random people. But what do I know? I just think that it's very obvious that you could expect something like that. And just to touch on the rest of her turn, am I the only one that it scratches my head? She's got like 5 million followers, right? Remember what we talked about before about conspiracy and being like anti-science and anti-trans will lead you to end up being, you're denying evolution. You'll deny medicine works because, you're denying the validity of trans people. Then you start denying vaccines work. You start saying things like vaccines cause autism or that drinking unpasteurized milk is healthy. All of this leads to conspiratorial thinking, right? Because somebody obviously would have to be lying to you. If you think that these organizations have been ideologically captured and that there is all of this conspiracy at the top, you are buying more and more and more into a worldview that is decoupled from reality. And it seems like it's easier to then start believing some of these more extreme things. Shane says there's such a hypocritical position given that queer phobia is something that people like that are absolutely down with. It's just impotent projection of their hypocrisy. What is that referring to? There's a delay in the text, so you may have said that earlier to something else I was talking about. But at the end of the day, it just ends up being a problem where the more you enable this conspiratorial thinking, you end up creating a safe haven for more extremists, right? Because we've seen Alex Jones's audience harassing the parents of the Sandy Hook shooters, accusing them of being liars and crisis actors and this type of thing. We've seen him, fans of his, go after the whole Pizzagate thing and storm a pizzeria with an AR-15, accusing them of like having kids in the basement when the building didn't even have a basement in the first place. Meanwhile, the actual predator ring of pedophiles are these Epstein-class billionaires that are sex trafficking huge amounts of kids to Epstein Island and everywhere else. And we end up seeing over and over and over, it's Epstein, it's Trump, it's John Casablancas, right? It's all of these people that are within these wealthy spheres of influence. And this also is true of churches as well. We see the Catholic Church, and I'm not saying all Catholics are pedophiles or anything that incendiary, but it's undeniable that the Catholic Church's hierarchy, their upper echelons of their organization, has had a dedicated network of protecting these pederast priests, often moving them around to other parishes and that type of thing, so that they can continue having dominion over these kids, and the abuse continues. Meanwhile, victims are hushed up by the church, or local government officials are being paid, bribed by the church or influenced in order to remain quiet. And we've seen tens of thousands of children that are, have been abused by these organizations. We know it's Epstein. We know it's Trump. We know it's that Epstein class of people. We know it's the churches. And instead, they'd rather peddle conspiracy about trans people. And hey, Ketnel, it was great to interview you earlier as well. I'm sorry to come in on this topic particularly. I'm just talking about the type of conspiracies and conspiratorial thinking that right-wingers get led down to the point where you start saying like all of science is wrong about evolution, all of science is wrong about trans people, all of science is wrong about people of color. And this just keeps sliding further and further to flat earth, to vaccines, to the doctor saying that demons can possess you via semen during COVID. Remember that happened? There was Trump's spiritual advisor banging her staff and chanting that angels were coming, is going to rain down from heaven and appoint Trump the leader after Trump lost the election. It's the 2020, election denialism. It's this type of conspiratorial thinking that's very dangerous. And I feel like Owens' turn here, at the end of the day, I'm not going to come down too hard on Owens herself. I think she's just an opportunist, and she's finding a way to make money with a group of people that would normally hate her and treat her as a targeted demographic for abuse. I feel like she's endearing herself to them by telling them what they want to hear. And there's so much anti-intellectualism wrapped up in conservatism that they end up buying into these conspiracy theories. And she's just replacing Alex Jones at this point because Alex Jones is washed up. I feel like, he's kind of like over the hill at this point, and he's out of touch with a lot of things that the younger generation believes. But I feel like she's also responsible for radicalizing a lot more people into a movement that is fine with Nazism by introducing people like Kanye West to Nick Fuentes and facilitating that. And we can kind of see where Owens's influence is causing actual harm within our society, right? We see a measles outbreak in West Texas, and a disease that was once eradicated might now start becoming more commonplace again because a shocking number of parents are now not vaccinating their kids because they are so terrified by conspiracies that they hear from people like Owens. I did an interview with Kitnell earlier, and I will post that as a separate video. I think it'll be very much worthwhile for y'all to check out. It's going to be part of a larger video series that I'm trying to do on trans people and our experiences. That way, if something does happen to us later on down the road, there will at least be videos of us talking about our lives, no matter what happens. Because, my fear of like retribution from some of these people is something that could happen. And hopefully my words will, live on with the fight, because we deserve to be free. We deserve to live a life without having to live in fear for being killed for who we are and just for existing. But if the stream has been entertaining, if you've got anything out of it or you've enjoyed it, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps. And then obviously commenting on videos later on will help as well. Hopefully we can get this message out to more people. Solidarity with the actual working class. Keep protesting ICE. I've been going for almost 2 hours at this point, and I'm still not feeling well from being sick last weekend. My voice is hurting pretty substantially. So I will call it a night for the stream. Thank you all for watching and being here. I will try and start tomorrow at my regular time. I was off doing making a video. So hopefully tomorrow we'll be back 7 p.m. once again. And I hope to see y'all then. Bye.